The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences only.
So don't tell your parents!
Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD, and with me, as usual, is that sarcastic asshole over there, Kyle.
It's me, Kyle. I forgot to record last time, so this is our second take.
Nothing new there. So yeah, this week, we're taking a look at Multiplex, the animated short. So if you remember, if you're a frequent listener to our channel, we interviewed the creator of this short, Gordon McAlpin, last year. I think that was back around the time that the comic version of this was ending, and he was just in the process of like getting this short together. Yeah, now the short is out. You can go watch it. And Kyle, I was able to see this a little early because I had donated to the Kickstarter for it. So both Kyle and I have seen it, and we're gonna just talk about it. Give our thoughts and opinions on it. It'll be kind of interesting because I myself am a longtime reader of the Multiplex comic, which this short is based on. Whereas Kyle has never read the comic in his life, so it'll be interesting to see where we fall on the spectrum of this. So just to give you a little background on this, the short is basically an 11-minute pilot. Basically, it's a soft reboot to the comic. Where it shows the main character Jason, starting his job at the Multiplex cinema, and meeting all these characters that already work there, and it's basically just goes through the first day of him on the job and meeting Kurt, who ended up becoming his best friend over time, and all these other characters. And that's basically just it. It's just like the first day on a new job kind of situation. So Kyle, you've never read this comic before.
No, sorry.
Right. So as someone who's coming in fresh to this, just give your basic thoughts. How did you like this?
I didn't.
Okay.
Not to be mean or anything, it's just I didn't really care for it. It wasn't really my cup of tea. But I'll say it's watchable. I didn't feel disgusted and had to turn it off. That's that's something good to say, because a lot of the things I see are like, nah, I can't do this. But,
so you don't regret watching, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was alright. I feel like it had some potential. Maybe there's more. It might draw my attention in a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the pop culture references, which you said it's its thing, whatever. That's cool and all, but I feel like sometimes when it's really recent stuff, it can end up really hurting it too. It'll end up dating it. Kind of like South Park, you see stuff like pirates as the Somalian pirates, then you go, oh yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah,
like
that is South Park's problem.
Well, it's like you would see Whale Wars and you're like, oh yeah, that was a show a long time ago. It's kind of stuff like that, but I feel too it's a double-edged sword, because if you make up something, you make up the name for something else, it's going to sound completely uninspired and kind of just be dumb. It's kind of weird. You can either have a world building thing and have its own set, or you could set it in there.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Because, I mean, there's parts of this where they're making modern references, and sometimes they're referencing old stuff, which, is, ingrained in our pop culture already. So, I mean, yes, they're talking about, like, the new It movie that just came out, but there's also references to, like, the old George Romero zombie movies, which, everybody knows.
Yeah.
So I feel I do get where you're coming from with the pop culture references. I feel if you're going to make pop culture references, maybe it's better to make ones that are already, like, deep-seated in the culture rather than... Because like you're saying, if you make a reference to something current and it doesn't end up, like, really sticking into our culture the way some other things do, it can feel dated.
A good example would be, like, you could say Godzilla, and it has, like, almost 50 years of, history.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, that new Rampage movie, and it's like, okay, that's gonna...
that's gonna come and go.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. I definitely get what you're coming from.
The humor for me, it didn't... I don't really care for the humor, but that's like another thing where it's like you're used to it, whatever. Me, not really used to it, so it didn't really stick. I got the jokes, it just didn't make me like, that's great.
Okay, yeah. And honestly, Kyle, I think that's good that we're talking about it like this, because I think what Gordon's been trying to do is shop this around to different film festivals and stuff, get it festival play. And a lot of people that are going to be seeing this short are people like you who have never heard of Multiplex, have never read it, and are coming in completely fresh. So it's interesting to get that kind of take on it. I, on the other hand, I really like this. I thought it was really well done. I liked, I don't think there's only like one or two things that I maybe have nitpicky things about, but they're like hardly anything. Basically when Gordon announced that he was making this short, which again is like a soft reboot to his comic, it's basically the same, more or less the same opening to the comic over 10 years ago, just with updated visuals and references and such. But basically, all I wanted out of this short was to be a further extension of the comic. Basically, same kind of dialogue, same kind of relationships, and like that. The characters can move and they have a voice now, and that is what I got. I got exactly that. I've got the animated version of the comic, and to that end, I was satisfied. I think I very glad that I gave to the Kickstarter that get this made, and I'm glad it was made, because I think the world Gordon built with this comic over the last 10 years or so, it got really deep, really rich, world building, and it'll be interesting to see if he can make more of these to kind of rebuild that in animated form.
Were those people new? Were they part of the comic?
Pretty much. No, everyone, as far as I could tell, because like Kyle and I have said before, I have the memory of a goldfish, so I don't remember the details of everything. But as far as I could tell, everyone in the short was in the comic. So obviously Jason and Kurt are in there. Becky and Melissa those are basically the main four of the comic. And then all the background characters who worked at the movie theater, they were all characters in the comic, and they had all their own arcs and personalities and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if Gordon's able to make more of these shorts. You get to meet those characters and see what they're about now, and see if there's any changes made to them. Because pretty much the main four characters you get are exactly as they were in the comic. Jason's a sarcastic ass. Kurt's wildly optimistic and loves trashy movies, stuff like that. So they're exactly they were when the comic ended last year. So I enjoyed that. So Kyle, did you feel like, because we were talking before, a lot of this dialogue is very much written from the perspective of someone who is very knowledgeable in film. So I mean, there's a conversation where Kurt and Jason meet for the first time, and they're just going back and forth about like movies and the quality of film. And they're just talking about like this movie and that movie, and like this director uses these angles and this kind of filming techniques and stuff. Did you feel that style of dialogue was alienating to you at all?
No, and I feel like if you're gonna have this in a festival or something, that's usually where film buffs go. So it might be speaking their language in a sense too.
I guess that's a good point.
Because I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go to this film festival. This is gonna be great. Like that kind of seems like where real movie lovers would go. That kind of stuff. So right. I don't feel like it would alienate them at all. I think it would be good. Mostly speaking their language.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Now that you say that, yeah, especially if it's going to festivals. Again, I mean, I've taken a couple film classes in college, so that kind of stuff, I get and I kind of can appreciate. And also, and part of the reason why I like the comic so much is that I worked in a movie theater for a couple of years out of high school, and that's when I discovered the comic. So it was, I get a lot of the in jokes, the in references about like movie theater operations and what it's like to work there. So the kind of humor that derives from that in this short and from the comic, I can relate to on a pretty big level. So being that this is very much an independent production, I will say the animation, while limited, I think was, for what it was, well done. I mean, the comic had a very simple art style. Gordon did the whole comic in Illustrator, so he was using vectors and developed this kind of lineless art style, which I really like. And the comic is pretty much that. I think, I don't know if you agree, Kyle, but I think, it gets a little puppety at points.
For sure. I noticed it when he was scanning the movies, like, first scene.
Yeah.
Very rigged or whatever it is, but I mean, it's like a sitcom. It doesn't really need the best animation in the world. It works for what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. This does feel very sitcom-y, which, I mean, the comic had that kind of vibe as well. And it's very dialogue. This is more like a comic would be. This is more dialogue driven rather than action driven. So it is a lot of standing around talking with not a lot of movement going on. And I think for the story that they're going with here, I think that works perfectly fine. So I think, at least in that regard, like, the animation doesn't need to be spectacular to get your point across. There's enough facial expressions and body movement enough to at least get the point across. But I think the dialogue is really what the focus is here, and I think at least the dialogue is written very well. I like these characters regardless of my bias towards the comic. I don't know. I like the interactions here.
You're biased.
Shut up. Yeah. What else? I know Gordon is he's shopping this around right now. I think he said he got enough funding that they're gonna do at least one little web short like maybe a 2 or 3 minute kind of thing, not a full episode, obviously. But I think the goal is that if this short does well enough, that they're going to try to do more shorts in the future. And like you said earlier, I think this does have potential. I think it's a good start. Yeah. I think someone coming into this new is not going to be blown away by it, but I'd like to think that someone coming in fresh would be intrigued enough that if there was more, that they would keep going.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think if you're a fan of the Multiplex comic, I think you probably already know about this, to be honest. But by some stretch you don't. I would definitely recommend you see this, especially if you enjoyed the comic. This is, like I said, it's more of the same. It's an extension of the comic. It's a reboot of the comic, and I think it works as a good reboot as well, which we all know how reboots go. Don't always work as well. Sorry, my mouth was getting dry. And if you're, you've never read the comic, Kyle, since you've never read the comic, would you recommend that people at least check this out?
Personally, I wouldn't. I mean, thinking of, like, my best friend, I'm not going to be like, oh, man, I saw this show. You got to see it, man. It's pretty great. I don't think I would ever bring it up in casual conversation, to be honest. That's why it's like, it's hard for me to recommend and say that when it wasn't like you said, mind-blowing to me.
Right.
It didn't leave an impression on me to be like, oh, fuck, dude, you gotta check this out.
Well, okay. Well, that's fair. So, yeah, I guess, listener, that leaves it up to you. If you got two very ends of the spectrum. I really liked it. Kyle pretty much didn't.
Different.
Yeah, it's indifferent to negative. So I personally would appreciate if you check this out. It's available on Vimeo on demand. I think it's like $2 to watch it. I don't know if it'll become free at some point. But I think I really enjoy when small independent people can set out to do a project and to deliver on that project and get this thing that they want to get done. Because I know Gordon has, I think he said on a couple occasions over the years that he wanted to pitch Multiplex as an animated show. And it's great to see that he finally is getting it started, that it's finally happening for him. So I'm happy for him. I'm glad this got done. And if you have a couple dollars to support the guy, that'd be great. And see if it might be coming to a film festival near you.
There you go.
All right. Kyle, do you have anything else to say before we sign off here?
Nah.
All right. Well, guys, I think that does it for this week. I will put a link to the Vimeo video in the description. And again, please go check that out. It would mean a lot to Gordon, I think, to have support for his new project. With that, I think we're gonna get out of here, and we'll catch you all next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can catch a new episode every week. Also be sure to follow us on our Facebook and Twitter so you can keep up with the show. Links are in the description. We'll see you next week.